Hi everyone, welcome to Flight of Light Dev Diary number 3. We're running a Kickstarter campaign at the moment to fund Flight of Light's music, and if you haven't already checked it out, then check the links below. And in fact, that's what I'm going to be talking about today, Flight of Light's music. So, a lot of people ask if Flight of Light will allow players to load in their own music from their own collection, and the answer is kinda. So say you've got your music in MP3 file format on your computer and you want to load it into your game. There's two ways that games typically handle doing that. Either the game tries to algorithmically pick up the beats and notes, goes into the file, sort of works out the music signature and so on, tries to pull the information out of there automatically. And this is what games like Audiosurf do. Or the game can use a beat map, and a beat map is a special file that says at what time each note should hit the player or do whatever it needs to do. So games like Osu or Guitar Hero take this approach. The advantage with the first method, the algorithm method, is that it allows players to basically pick any music file in their library, and with minimal effort the game will go away and do everything automatically, and there's not really much need for the player to do more than just choose which song they want to play along to. The downside to this is that while it's relatively easy to pick up the BPM, the tempo of the song, it's actually really quite a difficult problem to pull out individual notes or melodies or bass line. It's an incredibly complex problem, and if you look at games like Audiosurf, yeah, sometimes they get it right, they do quite a good job, but more often than not it's a little bit random. For that reason, Flight of Light uses the other approach, beat maps, which allows for much more accurate and satisfying mapping of music to the actual gameplay. The disadvantage of that is that someone actually has to sit there and place every single note manually. Well, once they do that, it creates a little file in the background that can then be shared, but it's still a little bit of effort for someone to go and make that file in the first place. For Flight of Light, what we're going to do is we'll launch the game with the initial 9 songs, the initial 9 pieces of music, and we'll do all the mapping out for those. And then once the game is launched, probably the first update that we'll do after the game launches is we'll polish up and release a little editor program so that people can feed in their own music and start to create those beat maps. So getting into more detail, how does that actually work in Flight of Light? Essentially, the beat map file, we've got our own little format, and it just says, okay, on the first beat put a yellow, on the 7th beat put a red, on the 8th beat put a blue, and so on. The game then goes through the file and creates individual note objects on the racetrack for each of the lines in the file. Now, to make things easier for the game and for the player as well, to stop it getting too messy, there's only 10 notes active on the racetrack per player at any one time. When a note hits the player, it will disable itself and then trigger the 10 plus 1th note in the series, or essentially the next note to activate, so that there's always 10 notes on the track at any one time. The smart thing about it is that each of the notes moves independently or semi-independently to each other. So each one says, okay, I need to hit the player at this time, and the player's going at this speed, and I am this distance away from the player, so I need to be moving at this speed relative to the player so that they catch me up at this exact time. And that's how the game allows for variable speed of the player, so the player can speed up or slow down when they're racing, but also keep all the notes, all the music in time. And this is actually a technique that other rhythm games use as well. Again, if you've ever seen the game Audiosurf, if you actually analyse it and you look closely at it, it does this. When a song's tempo slows down, because a lot of songs have variable tempos in them, when the music slows down, then the game will make the player slow down as well. And to keep everything in time, the blocks will slow down as well. If you actually look at them, you can see that they're moving along the roller coaster track just a lot slower. So with Flight of Light, basically taken that idea and then tried to take it to the next step, which is to say, okay, if we've got variable speed, then we can use that to create a racing game or a racing element to the game, as well as just being a rhythm game. The notes in Flight of Light also have a little bit of logic that they know about the other notes around them, so that they don't all bunch up, or so that they don't start passing each other and getting out of order. More generally with the music, the plan is to have each of the levels in the game linked to each other both thematically and in terms of musical styles. So for example, for the first 3 levels, you start up in the stratosphere, flying around these forested floated islands, and then later on you're sort of lower down in the atmosphere, you're near to the surface, and you're flying between much bigger islands that have narrow canyons and ravines between them. And then finally, for the last level in that world, you're underground, you're going through tunnels and caves of that particular planet. And then each of the levels in that world will have a different piece of music, but they'll all be the same genre, they'll all be kind of funk or future funk style. Similarly, we're planning a water world or water planet, and the idea with that is that you'll start off on flying around the beach, and then the next level you'll be underwater around the coral reefs and shallows, and then finally the last level you'll be in the deep sea trenches. And each of the songs for those 3 levels will have tropical island or Caribbean inspired music, lots of steel drums, maybe steel guitars, that kind of thing. So hopefully that gives you more of an idea about how Flight of Light's music works. As I said before, we're on Kickstarter, so go back us if you haven't already, or even if you're totally broke and can't possibly afford it, it'd be really great if you could just tweet out or share on social media or whatever a little message. That'd be really great and much appreciated. Thanks, and see you next time.